Tonight on Best Kept Secrets, we go inside one of the world's most secretive crime-fighting organizations, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. How does the FBI solve cases like the Oklahoma City bombing?
Unfortunately, in the United States, it's very easy to build a bomb. All the components are readily available, whether it be from a hardware store or a hobby store.
We reveal the secrets of the FBI's explosives unit. Plus,
I don't see around here then.
how the FBI foiled this gang's murderous plan to destroy an oil refinery.
My incentive for going to the FBI was to save lives.
And can this criminal profiler help the FBI catch a cold-blooded murderer?
There was an indentation on one side of the face and not the other, and there was a furrow in the brow.
Plus, the high-tech spy gadget that the FBI used to track down a band of dangerous cyber crooks.
With the Magic Box, we were able to see all the things that they were sending back and forth to each other, and all the computer systems that Calvin was hacking into.
And the FBI confronts the most heavily armed militia that U.S. law enforcement has ever faced. As we reveal the secret strategies of an FBI crisis negotiator.
If we can negotiate a person out, it's much better than going to have to drag them out and maybe shoot them.
These stories are straight ahead on Best Kept Secrets.
There is nothing mysterious about the manner in which the Federal Bureau of Investigation works. Its formula is a simple one: intensive training, carefully investigated and highly efficient personnel, plus rigid requirements in regard to conduct, intelligence, and integrity.
G-men, Tommy guns, public enemy number one. Since 1908, the FBI has enforced prohibition and waged bloody battles with the likes of Babyface Nelson and John Dillinger. Under legendary Chief J. Edgar Hoover, the Bureau created the nation's first crime-fighting laboratory and developed the field of forensic science. And today, the FBI employs 23,000 agents, the largest crime-fighting force in the nation.
FBI, come out with your hands up!
Its headquarters is located here, in the heart of Washington, D.C., in a building that occupies an entire city block. Behind these closed doors, agents use the latest in science and technology to combat crimes ranging from domestic terrorism to cybercrime.
Put your hands behind your back.
Tonight, we examine the FBI. From the files of actual cases, we'll reveal the crime-fighting secrets that have made the FBI the most powerful law enforcement agency in the world. Atlanta, Georgia. A terrorist bomb explodes in Centennial Olympic Park, killing one woman and injuring hundreds. North Caldwell, New Jersey. An advertising executive is killed when he opens a mysterious package which explodes in his hands. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. A powerful blast destroys the federal building, claiming 168 lives. In all three cases, it's a race against time, as an elite division of the FBI known as the Explosives Unit attempts to catch the mad bombers before they strike again.
The FBI Explosives Unit is the part of the FBI laboratory that does the forensic examination of bomb components, unexploded bombs. They also do residue analysis of the explosives that are used in bombs.
Explosives examiner Donald Sockleben agreed to take us inside one of the nation's most secretive crime-fighting laboratories. Here, this team of highly trained technicians and forensic scientists carefully combs through evidence, searching for any clues that will help the FBI capture a bomber. In Atlanta, the search for answers begins at Ground Zero, the scene of the Olympic bombing, where every step is fraught with danger.
Any crime scene, you have to assume that there could be other devices there, what we would call secondary devices or booby traps. We've seen that recently in some of the bombings around the Atlanta and Birmingham areas.
In Atlanta, agents are sifting through the rubble of an abortion clinic bombing, when suddenly a secondary device explodes. Miraculously, no one is killed, but 7 people are injured, including several federal agents. But in the aftermath of the Olympic bombing, investigators rely on surprisingly common technology to search for deadly booby traps.
The most effective tool that we have is the X-ray, the portable X-ray. We can actually go up to a package, and with a remote technique, we can put the X-ray down, X-ray the package, and see whether or not it's a hazard.
Back at the explosives lab, examiners use a high-tech instrument called a Raman spectrometer, a device that determines if a package contains explosive material.
With the Raman, what we're doing is we're using a light source to go into the container and actually get a spectrum off of the substance inside the container. There we're actually able to examine a suspected explosive substance without even having to open the container. And that's great for in the laboratory when you don't want to put yourself at risk any further than you have to.
At the federal building in Oklahoma City, no secondary devices are found. But while the nation is horrified at the carnage, the explosives unit is quickly searching the wreckage for evidence to be used in a test called residue analysis. This helps the FBI determine what chemicals fueled the blast.
First thing that happens is that the part of our unit that does the residue analysis takes the evidence, extracts anything that they can find from there that would help them identify the explosives.
Within hours, residue analysis pinpoints a key piece of evidence.
There we were fortunate that we actually did find a piece of debris that had some of the ammonium nitrate prills that were still embedded in it. And from those prills, we were able to conclude that it was an ammonium nitrate-based explosive.
From these findings, the FBI concludes that a fertilizer bomb was used in the most deadly terrorist attack on U.S. soil. Now, the search for a suspect begins. The challenge for the explosives unit is to determine how the massive bomb was brought to the scene.
If it's a very large bombing, it's probably going to be a vehicle. So we want to try to identify that vehicle as quickly as we can. And here you can see some pieces that we did in a test with a vehicle, and you can just see the extent to which these are mangled by the explosion.
Within a short time, investigators locate the axle of a truck that was blown nearly 600 feet away from the federal building.
And from that axle, the bomb technicians who were at the scene were able to very quickly identify it as having come from the bomb vehicle. And then they were able to give that information to other investigators who tracked it back to the rental facility.
In less than a day, suspected bomber Timothy McVeigh is taken into custody. But examiners investigating the murder of the New Jersey ad executive are not so lucky. With no sign of a suspect, they focus their attention on the bomb itself and begin a process known as device analysis.
When we do an analysis of a device, what we're trying to do is simply identify the components that are there and try and see if we can figure out how they were put together, how they worked, or in some cases, how they didn't work.
Unlike the fertilizer bomb used in Oklahoma City, device analysis reveals that the New Jersey bomb is made from common household items.
The problem is that there's so many things that can be used to make a bomb, whether it be a digital watch, batteries, or even liquid explosive that can look like aftershave lotion. By themselves, they look quite innocuous, but assembled together is when they become deadly.
For that reason, the explosives unit maintains a huge supply of potential bomb-making ingredients.
We keep an extensive collection of known standards, clocks, batteries, watches, wire, anything that can be used to make a bomb, we try to keep a sample of so that we can try to identify using those the piece that we have in.
Using these elements, examiners begin to reconstruct the bomb that killed the New Jersey executive.
We actually lay it all out here in the laboratory and see if we can't figure out how it fit together and how it came apart, which sometimes will tell us what the type of explosive was used.
So as the bomb is reassembled, examiners realize they're dealing with a serial bomber who's eluded them for years. The infamous Unabomber.
Probably one of the toughest cases that our unit has faced was the Unabomber case. 16 devices, 17 years of investigation. Clearly, that was the one that caused us the most trouble.
While serial bombers tend to be meticulous and cleverly elusive, the secret to identifying them is to uncover what the FBI calls the bomber's signature.
The way they wrap wires, the way they tie knots, the materials that they choose to put into the bomb, those things can often indicate to us that we're dealing with someone who's building a series of bombs.
In fact, Sachleben says the Unabomber literally signed his bombs.
Over several devices, he put the letters FC in there to let us know that that's who it was. But there was even more of a signature than that. We could tell after looking at these 16 bombs that he made, the way that he put his batteries in there, the way that the wires were connected, the soldering that he did. Many of those things indicated to us that it was the same person.
Thanks to device analysis and a lucky break, the Unabomber was later identified as this man, Ted Kaczynski. The evidence gathered by the FBI's explosives unit was instrumental in putting him away for life. Device analysis is also crucial to solving both the Olympic and abortion clinic bombings. This is a replica of the deadly terrorist bomb that rocked the Olympic Games.
It threw these nails out into the crowd. Extremely deadly shrapnel.
Once the FBI knows what materials were used to build the bomb and how it was concealed, agents make a public appeal for information about the bomber.
Today, in showing you this backpack or this reconstructed bomb here, we believe we've given every possible opportunity that we can to the public to refresh their memories and perhaps come forward with additional information.
But Sachleben reveals another secret for rebuilding bombs.
You can actually go to a bombing range and use sometimes thousands of pounds of explosives inside of a vehicle that we think is similar to the one used, detonate it,
Fire in the hole!
go out, measure the crater, measure where the pieces were found, collect the evidence that we find there and compare it to what we had at the bombing scene.
There's also another reason for these dramatic recreations. These images give jurors an unforgettable look at the devastation a bomb can cause.
Sometimes we'll actually go to our explosives range and reconstruct the device and detonate it and film that so we can go into court and show that to the judge and jury.
Eric Rudolph, the man accused of the bombings at both the Olympics and the abortion clinic in Atlanta, has yet to face a jury. He remains at large. But thanks to the explosives unit, McVeigh and Kaczynski will never again pose a threat to society. However, the FBI's ultimate goal is to catch terrorists before they strike. Bridgeport, Texas. The residents of this sleepy farm town outside Dallas have no idea that their lives are in danger. That's because the people caught on this surveillance video are planning a terrorist attack.
You can smell fuel here. Smell it?
Yeah.
What is that I smell?
That's propane right there.
Propane?
Uh-huh.
Hey, I don't light no cigarette here then.
Too late. Right there!
The suspected bombers are members of the Ku Klux Klan. They are scheming to destroy the Mitchell Energy Refinery as a diversion for another crime, an armored car heist, which would fund the war they're planning against the U.S. government.
Of course, after Mitchell Energy Refinery, probably have to remove anyways.
Relocate? That's all right. We'll just go buy a castle.
We'll go to Germany, buy one of those old castles in Germany and start our own Reich.
But these terrorists are unaware that the FBI is watching their every move. That's because one of their own is secretly working undercover for the FBI as an informant. How does the Bureau use informants to bring dangerous criminals to justice? They have several top secret strategies, which we are about to reveal. FBI Inspector Bob Garrity says the first step is to find a disgruntled member who is willing to betray his group and work as a spy. In the case of the oil refinery bombing, they enlisted an unlikely ally, Bob Spence, one of the highest-ranking members of the KKK.
Our confidential source, who was a member, in fact, he was the Grand Wizard of the True Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, normally would not be the kind of person that we would be cooperating with. He came to us and told us about members of his clavern who were discussing a conspiracy, discussing a crime that he just could not tolerate.
Why would a lifelong member of the Klan turn against his friends? Garrity says people usually become FBI informants because they face criminal charges and have worked out a deal with the feds. But Bob Spence apparently had a different motive.
My incentive for going to the FBI was to save lives. To me, being an informant meant that I was doing something to help my country. And that's why. And I felt good about it.
Regardless of his good intentions, Spence couldn't possibly gather evidence against the Klan on his own. So the FBI assigns him a top-secret liaison called a handler to guide his every move.
Agents who are very good source handlers have very good interpersonal skills, and they're able to take the source's fears, take his concerns, and try to reassure him that we're out there, he is safe, we're going to do whatever we can to protect him.
In this case, Spence's handler is Special Agent Morgan Body.
I was his only go-between as far as between Mr. Spence and the FBI. So he had to trust me completely.
That trust is tested for an agonizing 28 days as Spence leads a double life, collecting information for the FBI. Spence knows he is risking his life as well as the safety of his family.
I know how paranoid the Klan is. And if they even suspect someone to be an informant, they won't hesitate to deal with them. And the bad thing is they don't deal just with them, they deal with their family also. They'll try to harass the family to run them out of the county. The informant's just dead meat if he's still around where they get to him.
Despite the risks, Spence allows the FBI to rig a video camera in the dashboard of his truck. Here, the hidden camera records one of the suspects describing how he's going to make a bomb.
Wire twist, screw the top down, hold, keep it in an upright position, set it, tape it, get the hell out of the way.
But getting a conviction in this case will require more than just words caught on tape. Garrity says the FBI has to prove that the suspects intend to kill.
With a conspiracy, there has to be some overt acts committed. There has to be a point when they go beyond speaking and go towards acting.
Finally, the Bureau gets the break it needs when it learns that the Klansmen are going to a field to test their homemade bombs. The feds come up with a simple and remarkably effective plan. They give Spence an ordinary home video camera and tell him to record his friends as they prepare and detonate the explosives. In case the Klansmen question why Spence has a camera, the FBI gives him a cover story.
As far as the videotape goes, it was kind of amusing, really. I told them that I was trying this thing out to see if I wanted to buy it, so that was a good time to test it.
The actions caught on videotape are enough to convince the agents that the Klansmen are about to follow through with their terrifying scheme.
I got them setting off one explosive round, and they brought the remains of what they set off over to me.
But even though the tape is startling, the FBI still needs more evidence. 4 weeks into the operation, they finally get it. The Klansmen go to the refinery to finalize their plans. They talk about the bombing in explicit detail. This is the videotape that seals the Klansmen's fate.
I'm going to set it up with a timer and back it up with a tilt switch.
So you're going to have it at the heads there where they come in and load, plus one on one of those barrels
tanks
over there?
Uh-huh. That big one at the loading station. Because if that loading station goes, there's no shut-offs until they get to the tanks.
Yeah. Can you imagine one wellhead when it blows, huge flame is hot.
Then comes the most chilling evidence of all. as the conspirators drive by a house across the street from the refinery. A tragic consequence of their plan is revealed.
There's a few kids that live right there, though. But they'll be in school.
Yeah.
But if it has to be, I hate to be that way, but if it has to be.
The FBI now has all it needs to make the arrest. They instruct Spence to drive the Klansmen to a gas station. Then, the feds make their move.
There goes one of the cops, black and white, down the road.
The FBI agents race in from every direction.
Oh my God.
Get on the ground, both of you!
Thanks to the FBI's use of a secret informant, the bombing conspiracy is foiled and the suspects are put behind bars. Bob Spence has refused the witness protection program and lives in fear for his life. But he says it's a price he's willing to pay for justice.
I still feel good about it. If I had it to do over, I'd do it exactly the same way, even if it did cost me.
Sometimes, only a civilian can help the FBI solve a crime. Other times, they rely on the expertise of a trained professional. October 1st, 1993. In the quiet Northern California town of Petaluma, 12-year-old Polly Klass is kidnapped from a slumber party in her own home.
It looks like they're gridding the area out and systematically going through the area, and once they've gone through that area, they know that's clear.
Within hours, the local police release a composite sketch of the suspect, based on descriptions given by two of Polly's friends. He's described as 6'3" and wearing a neon yellow headband. Thousands of copies are distributed to police agencies, the media, and the FBI. The case attracts national attention. Actress Winona Ryder, a Petaluma native, offers a $200,000 reward for Polly's safe return. But there's a problem. The two young witnesses say the man in the drawing, the man everyone is searching for, doesn't look like the kidnapper.
The investigation is still continuing. We're still trying to gather more information and more evidence, and we can't comment on it.
2 weeks after Polly's disappearance, there are still no leads. The FBI is desperate and running out of time. With each passing day, their chances of finding Polly alive are diminished. That's when they turn to Jean Boylan, a sketch artist who has helped them solve countless crimes. Her strikingly accurate drawings were even used in the search for the infamous Unabomber. Boylan agreed to reveal the secrets of how she creates these images for the FBI.
My job title is Criminal Image Profiler, and what I do is I enter a case, usually after an existent police sketch has been done, and it is basically leading the investigation, and I re-interview trauma victims to try to determine what they actually saw. And then I graphically depict that image so that the investigation can have a direction to go.
Boylan believes that a witness's memory is as crucial to a case as any physical evidence.
What I would ultimately want would be for police to really protect that memory as evidence, like they would any other piece of evidence in a case, whether it be fingerprints on a murder weapon or fibers.
But when Boylan arrives in Petaluma, Polly's father is skeptical that she can help.
She showed up with an entourage of TV producers and FBI agents, and I found it very disconcerting that this beautiful blonde woman being escorted through the police department and being portrayed as the individual who might very well break the case open. My concern was that they had taken my daughter's tragedy and gone Hollywood with it, because Jeannie didn't seem like a person from the real world to me.
I wish that I was here telling you tonight that we had found Polly and she was going to be coming home safe.
But Boylan refuses to be distracted by the media circus. She focuses her attention on Polly's friends. Her secret approach is to do the opposite of what a police sketch artist would normally do.
The usual police process for preparing these composites is for an artist or an investigator to sit down and have an eyewitness look through a selection of features.
him. Those are the eyes.
You choose eyes, and you choose a nose, and you choose a chin, etc.
But Boylan says looking at so many faces in the composite book can confuse witnesses and contaminate their memory.
What happens when you sit a crime victim down and you have them look through a catalog? The typical catalog has 960 full facial photographs in it. You're taking 960 images and you're overlaying it over that original recall. That's how the distortion and the contamination takes place. If I'm lucky, and only if there's trauma in the circumstance under which this eyewitness saw the suspect, that information will be encoded deeply into memory and will still be there. But I have to work through all that contamination and try to retrieve that deeply embedded level of recall.
Because of inconsistencies in the girls' stories, the police suspect that they might actually be covering for Polly.
They had basically been called liars. The profile that had been drawn up was that Polly had run away with a boyfriend and that the girlfriends were covering up for that in some way.
But the girls insist that Polly was abducted by a stranger. In order to get the investigation back on course, Boylan knows she has to gain the girls' trust to get a better depiction of the suspect.
The real secret was to create a situation in which both of the kids individually felt that they were in control, and I was a guest on their territory.
One of the ways Boylan gains the girls' trust is to dress like them.
I put on something that a 12-year-old would be comfortable in being around. I put on blue jeans and a sweatshirt and pulled my hair back, and I just became more like them.
Boylan interviews the girls separately, probing their memory for clues. She does not interrogate them, but engages them in casual conversation. Her questions are always indirect.
I divert them throughout the interview and then periodically interject questions about shapes and about textures, and the information and the answers are usually there because they're not dwelling and they're not second-guessing themselves.
Another one of Boylan's secret tactics is to encourage the girls to use Play-Doh to help recall their memories of the suspect's face.
And what that does, it gives her a physical anchor in the moment so that she's not, again, revisiting that crime. It's a simple little tool, but it's very effective. So I would say if you were going to create that kind of a shape, would you create a shape that's longer than wide or the same length as width? And if I asked her that question, even in my voice tone, if I say longer than wide or the same length as width, you'll understand that that voice tone is da-da, da-da-da, because if I even weight my voice tone more heavily at one end of the sentence than the other, I can lead someone that's been through trauma.
After interviewing the girls, Boylan draws a depiction that is much more detailed than the police composite. In fact, the suspect in Boylan's portrait has a beard.
There were some very distinctive characteristics in this suspect face. There was an indentation on one side of the face and not the other, and there was a furrow in the brow. There were wrinkles in the forehead. All these single individual traits that made this single face identifiable as opposed to being generic gave me a pretty high level of confidence that we had a good rendition.
Looking at Jeannie's portrait for the first time set something off, I think, deep inside everybody that looked at it, that finally we have a face, that finally there are real sets of features that go together and underlie some kind of a personality.
When Jean Boylan's new drawing is presented to the press, she is questioned about one glaring omission.
I got this barrage of questions by the press saying, you know, what about the headband? And my initial reaction was like, oh my God, I forgot the headband. But the reality was there was no headband. It didn't surface in either interview. What that was a perfect example of the power of suggestion. The two little girls were shown a selection of headgear, which implies that such an item exists. If I said to you, there's an old expression, don't think of a pink elephant, and when I say that to you, what do you think of?
Boylan's new drawing gives investigators renewed hope, and the search for Polly goes into high gear.
For the first time, we knew more or less what we were looking for, and I think that it instilled a sense of purpose, or reinstilled a sense of purpose to all of the various players involved, who at that time tended to be the law enforcement, the media, and certainly the massive volunteer effort as well.
There will be probably tomorrow between 200 and 300 search and rescue personnel here to assist us.
Thanks to Boylan's drawing, within 6 weeks, police follow a trail of evidence to this man, Richard Allen Davis, who looks nothing like the original police sketch, but very much like the man Boylan has drawn.
Now let's get to the point you tell me, oh, you know I did it, you want to know why
Eventually, Davis confesses not only to kidnapping Polly, but also to her murder. The nation joins the Class family in mourning the loss of 12-year-old Polly. Even though Gene Boylan's work was instrumental in the capture and conviction of Polly's killer, sadly, there is always a new case for her to solve.
I think that Jeannie Boylan has a great gift, that she has a gift from the gods which law enforcement should continue to use.
Despite her impressive record of success, Boylan denies that she has any special talent. She believes her methods can be taught to other law enforcement sketch artists, and if they're applied in a timely manner, they can even save lives.
I think it's just sitting down and having empathy and having compassion for someone that's been through a horrible ordeal and taking the time to listen, which is a luxury oftentimes police don't have.
Sometimes a pad and pencil is the best weapon to catch a criminal. But in the computer age, agents have to rely on technology and imagination. Fingertips stab at a keyboard. Bloodshot eyes glare at a glowing computer screen. A small band of cyber thieves called the Phone Masters are in the midst of a massive internet crime spree. They've been stealing calling card numbers and top secret information to sell on the black market. They've even managed to steal unlisted phone numbers at the highest levels of the United States government, an electronic invasion that seriously threatens national security.
They actually looked at Bill Clinton's mother and got her telephone information, so every place that she called, all the places that were calling her, and then they had all the unlisted numbers from the White House. And so they had some extensive knowledge and were able to get into systems that they really should never have been in.
FBI agent Mike Morris is in charge of an impossible mission: to arrest people he can't identify with technology that hasn't even been invented yet.
We're real concerned about the Phone Masters in that this group had penetrated phone switches and phone systems throughout the United States.
Morris, like most Americans in 1994, knows very little about computers and the internet. But he wonders if the FBI could possibly wiretap computer hackers the same way that it taps phone calls. Necessity being the mother of invention, Morris sets out to create a secret device that can track every keystroke from a cyber crook's computer.
It then became a matter of finding the technology that was available at the time and piecing it together in such a way that we could get our end result.
Man, I made it. I'm in.
Morris and a team of FBI engineers invent a high-tech, high-speed computer tracking device that they proudly call the Magic Box. The complex inner workings of the Magic Box are so secretive that Morris isn't allowed to reveal how it works.
I'm really not at liberty to go farther into that technology. It might jeopardize other investigations.
But he did agree to tell us how it was used for the very first time to catch the Phone Masters. First, the FBI gets a tip that someone is offering to sell the phone records of several celebrities. The suspect with the stolen goods is this man, Calvin Cantrell. FBI agents set up a stakeout inside a store near Cantrell's house in Grand Prairie, Texas. This building across the street is a major substation for the telephone company, and a perfect place for Cantrell to steal classified information.
This particular building, Calvin, when he was hacking, used to dive into that dumpster over there and actually pull information out of. He also actually had hacked into the telephone switch contained in this building. So he actually, at one point in time, owned the computer that was inside that building. He could have changed it, done whatever he wanted to.
Using a wiretap and the Magic Box, agents record all of Cantrell's phone calls and every keystroke he makes on his computer.
Our Magic Box, if you will, would intercept everything that he did across his computer.
Incredibly, the FBI discovers that Calvin Cantrell is not just any cyber criminal, but one of the 3 leaders of the Phone Masters.
With the Magic Box, we were able to see all the things that they were sending back and forth to each other, and all the computer systems that Calvin was hacking into.
The suspects are unaware that the FBI is onto them. In fact, During one secretly recorded phone conversation, they even joke about the possibility of being investigated.
What the hell happened? That was the FBI tapping in. Man, was it really? You're going to jail. We're all going to jail for a very long time.
Finally, after 2 months of constant surveillance, the FBI has all the evidence it needs to arrest the phone masters. Cantrell and 11 other hackers are apprehended. Thanks to the FBI's secret weapon, the Magic Box, and Agent Mike Morris, the nation's first computer detective, dozens of cyber crooks are taking the information superhighway directly to jail.
If they hack it and we find out about it, the FBI will definitely be on it, and we'll find them.
Cyberspace may be the new frontier for some FBI agents, but others still have to meet the enemy face to face. Oakland, Arkansas. The FBI surrounds a 240-acre compound which is guarded by these heavily armed and camouflaged soldiers. They call themselves the Covenant Sword and Arm of the Lord, or CSA. Hundreds of lives are at stake in this potentially explosive standoff, including those of 125 women and children inside the compound. The tragic consequences of a deadly showdown like this one would be fully realized 10 years later in Waco, Texas. But here in the Ozarks, the FBI is about to attempt a top-secret negotiation strategy in hopes of ending the siege peacefully. March 1985. The soldiers of the CSA have been training for a self-described holy war to overthrow the U.S. government. We managed to obtain this exclusive footage shot inside the CSA compound. The group is led by James Ellison, a paramilitary preacher from Illinois, who has been spreading hate across the Ozarks.
But if God does not judge this nation and put the rod of correction on this nation, then he's going to have to resurrect Sodom and Gomorrah and apologize. Because this nation is guilty.
Here, Ellison is attempting to recruit new members.
You can't walk the streets without seeing homosexuals and queers and being accosted by thieves and robbers. And when they get caught, they might spend the night in jail. Because the laws of God have been forsaken.
But Ellison is unaware that FBI agents have been sent in to arrest him on weapons charges. The Bureau's mission is to make Ellison surrender without bloodshed. It is a seemingly impossible task, considering that Ellison is the leader of the most formidable fighting force that U.S. law enforcement has ever faced. Tactical Commander Danny Coulson is the FBI's man in charge.
The problem was compounded for us by the fact that they had a religious philosophy that made the murder of an FBI agent justifiable and even a good thing to do. They had assault weapons. They had some AK-47s. They had a Lewis machine gun that they were mounting on an armored car they were building. They had Claymore mine type of devices. They had hand grenades. They had a law rocket, which will knock out a light tank. They were very, very formidable.
Now, Coulson takes us back to the scene to recount the tense showdown with the CSA.
Then the main compound was very heavily fortified. The stone buildings had pillboxes. It was protected by explosives.
Coulson's first move is to surround the compound with 200 FBI agents and dozens of state and local police, making escape impossible. The FBI's secret plan is to use reverse psychology, not to attack as the CSA is expecting, but to do the opposite.
Religion taught them that when the government came, we would attack them, and they would have to defend themselves. And when nobody was attacked, it really threw them off balance.
Coulson's strategy is to wait it out and lure the CSA into negotiating.
This was more of a psychological operation. It was a tactical operation. The psychology was basically be patient, negotiate, talk to them, make them appear hopeless, that they can't get out. We wanted to convince him again that we weren't there to hurt anybody, but also that we had tremendous firepower. And I wanted him to understand that if there's a firefight here, they're going to lose it.
The CSA makes it clear that it would rather fight than talk.
James Ellison will not surrender to the authorities. We no longer feel that the people of this country, and especially those involved with the right wing, can receive absolute justice from the court system. But, gentlemen, if you excuse me, I really need to get back. Thank you.
That's Ellison's right-hand man, Kerry Noble, who has also agreed to revisit the scene of the standoff. Noble reveals that the CSA was scheming to draw the feds into a violent gun battle.
What we were hoping for and expecting was that once the government came in on us and we started the shootout and the war, that others would come in also and start a chain reaction, a domino effect that would cause uprisings throughout the country, that would just keep going, escalating, snowballing effect to where the apocalypse would come in, which would usher in the second coming of Christ.
But the FBI is about to deploy another secret tactic. They will try to trick the CSA into believing that it has choices and even some control over the outcome of the standoff.
The secret to bringing someone to your point of view is options. What kind of options you give them? And we gave them two options. One was to engage in a war here and lose it, or to talk and to live.
Colson's plan works. Ellison finally agrees to meet with the FBI. But this won't be an ordinary negotiation. Ellison will only talk directly to Agent Colson.
Ellison would only talk to a tactical person and a commander. He viewed himself as a commander, and he wasn't about to talk to a subordinate negotiator. It made sense, although it was a violation of the FBI's policy at the time to do that.
Colson uses the unusual face-to-face meeting to attempt the next phase of his strategy, which is to make the militia leader feel important.
We didn't try to intimidate him. We didn't yell at him. We didn't make demands. We just talked in a very calm way, just like we're talking here today. I felt right then that I'd won him over.
Colson's next move is to make Ellison believe that he controls his own destiny. He allows Ellison to go back inside to consider his options. But Colson soon fears that his plan will backfire.
My biggest concern was that maybe Mr. Ellison wasn't in total control, and that someone inside would say, this is enough of this, we're going to shoot our way out of here, and turn the whole thing into a very chaotic firefight, much like the ATF had at Waco.
I love all my children, but if I have to sacrifice my children for what God's doing, I'll have to do it, because He'll take them anyway if He wants them. If you haven't faced that reality yet, you need to face it.
Colson and Ellison negotiate around the clock. FBI snipers hold their aim, and TV crews hold their breath, fearing a bloody gun battle. After 4 days of tense negotiations, Colson finally convinces Ellison to surrender. Hundreds of innocent lives are spared.
And the motto of the FBI's hostage rescue team is to save lives. And if we can negotiate a person out, it's much better than going to have to drag them out and maybe shoot them. And if you're true to your motto and the things you believe in, that was the only possible course of action that we could have taken.
The peaceful resolution, I think, came about because of the government's willingness to talk, to not come in shooting, firing right off the bat, their integrity, and I think ultimately just the grace of God, working everything out to where nobody got killed.
America today is in a terrible place. God bless this nation.
Ellison served 6 years in prison, and today he's preaching at another compound in Oklahoma. Kerry Noble spent 2 years in prison and left the CSA for good. And in a remarkable turn of events, today Kerry Noble and Danny Colson have forged a very unique friendship. One that wouldn't exist if it were not for the secret strategies of the FBI.
To go from a time when we were pointing weapons at each other to a time now that we sit around and drink iced tea and talk about our kids is a great irony for me. The first time I met with Kerry Noble after this event was many, many years later. And I said, Kerry, I'm really glad I didn't shoot you. And he looked at me and said, Danny, I'm really glad I didn't shoot you too.
Tonight, we've taken you inside one of the world's most secretive crime-fighting organizations, the FBI. We've seen how the explosives unit uses cutting-edge technology and painstaking detective work to track down society's most dangerous killers. And how one artist relies more on her ears than her eyes to create the portrait of a suspect. We've shown you how the FBI uses everything from cutting-edge technology to informants to infiltrate and arrest criminals. But there are many other tactics that cannot be revealed in order to protect national security. Strategies that will forever remain among the FBI's best-kept secrets.